And we are live. Hello and welcome to Developer Insights. I'm David.
And I'm still Justin.
Together we're the leads on game development and design here at Codename.
Well, not only that, but we are also the founders.
But we will be your host for this episode and for every episode.
Unless we're not.
It's been true so far.
Today is our 15th episode.
That's great.
Is that all you have to say about that?
Sorry, I was distracted. I was thinking about the question you posted earlier today.
Oh, this isn't about Tiamat's ears, is it?
Yeah, so she's got 10 ears, or ear slits, because she's a dragon. And it would seem that she has one consciousness, but multiple heads. So I'm thinking some kind of surround sound is...
I think maybe like the opposite of surround sound. Like she surrounds something, and then when it makes a noise... Anyway, today is our 15th episode. We are here to answer your development and design questions about Idle Champions. If you ask us about some other things or some of our other games, we might be able to answer those too.
And if you don't ask any questions, you'll have to suffer through more of Justin's questions about Tiamat's ears. Maybe specifically around the high cost of hearing aids.
No, I think that was Eric.
It's still a good question.
Yeah. It looks like we're starting to get some questions, but before...
As always, we pulled some questions from last week's show that we didn't get to, and we'll answer some of those while we wait for the new questions to come in. So let's just hop over to that. Okay. You want to start with, that's a deal. All right. So we got a question here from last week that was actually one that was highlighted for something that we should be looking into. And this one is from OG17. And OG asked, why do nerds only have one base feat? Reddit Q&A says for their it's from their unusual release, but that doesn't follow. Nerds is supposed to have two base feats. Second one, oh, nope, that's your part.
Yes. This is a question that was asked last week. We highlighted it for to be looked into, and yes, Nerds is supposed to have two base feats, and we've now flagged that to the dev team to get the second one put in. So hopefully the second one will be added soon. And then we pulled some questions from last week that we didn't answer that we will now answer while we're waiting for questions to come in, though I do see there's lots of questions already coming in. But we'll do in here from Tombo Larkin for you, Dave, here. And they're asking, can you show the Modron core names when hovering/switching it in the current party screen?
Yeah, that's a great question, and especially because I personally have gone to switch them and not known which one I had assigned. So I think that's actually a good suggestion, and that we should just put that on the list immediately.
The people in chat are saying that the code is not working.
I saw that. They're saying they don't match the weekly code versus the one in the chat. I'm just checking.
Let's see what we said.
Tiamat.
It's supposed to be Tiamat Nears. Yes. See, that's why I was confused. The one on the screen. The one up here is wrong. Oh, the one up here is wrong. It should be Tiamat Nears, not Tiamat's Near.
It's true. It's true indeed.
But you copied.
I even came up with that code, so I must have. All right, there we go. Problem solved.
I think I confused that one because in the chat here I see earlier today you were like, I think today's code should be Tiamat Nears. Seeing as Trials of Mount Tiamat is coming out soon. And I said, I read that as Tiamat's ears, and then that caused about an hour's worth of discussion about Tiamat's ears. So if your bug isn't fixed, that's why. Anyway, you answered the question about the Modron things, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
We should highlight that one yellow, just, yeah.
Okie dokie.
Got it. All right.
Okay.
We've got a question here left over from last week for you, Justin, from Brent Copeland. And Brent asks, are familiars ever going to get situational bonuses so that you might want to use different familiars for different heroes or encounters? No, we're probably not going to do that. One of the things that people have actually been asking about that we're hoping to implement very soon is just when you load a save formation that's got a bunch of familiars on it, that if those familiars aren't available, it loads whatever familiars it can. That's one of those offline progress Modron animation fixes that's high on our list. And that kind of goes counter to adding situational bonuses to familiars and requiring certain ones on certain heroes and certain things. So no, there's no plans to make it
so that familiars are different anyway, except for some Easter eggs. There are some Easter eggs with familiars if you put them on certain places, certain familiars on certain places. There are a couple of Easter eggs. Well, there's at least one I can think of, but I think there's two. So yes.
The one, but yeah, okay, yep. All right, and the last question left over from last week is from Mavunkin, I think so. We're going with that. When can we expect the next soft cap increase?
Very soon. The next soft cap increase will likely be part of the Trials of Mount Tiamat release, because we want to give people a little bit more power, just in case you're stuck in the Descent into Avernus adventures. Because in order to access Trials of Mount Tiamat, you will need to have completed the Descent into Avernus campaign adventures, the base adventures at least.
Okay. All right, moving into today's questions. First question we have here is from NeoSurdy. And NeoSurdy asks, any new info on how to get the Mage Hand Familiar skin in the future, or the green Mage Hand Familiar skin?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we actually just talked about this today in the production meeting, just before this stream, and we're going to look into getting some of those both click skins and familiar skins that you can't get anymore into the gem store. So that is something that we're looking into. There's a tiny little bit of text or tech that needs to be done to support that. So it's probably not going to come out in the immediate future, but it is on the list to do. Let's see here. We've got a question from Billy G, BA Billy G 2000. Who says, question about changes. Can you consider announcing changes like the narrow bench slots and console portraits in advance? Being ASD, some changes can be very difficult for people who have difficulty with changes. You're announcing the Trials of Tiamat, so I'm prepared that it's coming, but the portraits and narrow slots were a bit of a shock to log in and see. Thinking maybe a short little blog on the CNA homepage, kind of like the new Event Champ Spotlight.
Yeah, so I saw this question last week too, and we didn't actually address it, but it is one of those things where we can't commit to being able to, we can't commit to having a certain period of time in advance of something to get out the word that we're going to be making changes. I do know that this particular change, especially the portrait one, and there was some discussion around the defaulting of that. I know this was certainly something that some players were concerned about because it showed up and they thought it was maybe a permanent change as to rather something that you could opt into rather than something that, as most players know at this point, is just an option you can turn on and off in the menu. I guess the tricky part about this is even if we put something on the CNE homepage, chances are that most players would miss it because there's sort of the rate at which people see that stuff. The blog, what's the best word for it? The viewership of the blog, the readership on the blog is a very, very small percentage of the overall game players. And so most players would still miss it, unfortunately. No, I appreciate the sudden change. And I know in this case, a lot of people looked at the portraits and it was kind of a polarized, there was some polarized response on that one. In general, for big feature changes like the Tiamat stuff, we're going to be announcing that long in advance. But for smaller things like this, we just can't commit to having a certain period of extended advancement on or advance notice on that sort of thing. But yeah, certainly for the big features. And we definitely go out of our way to make sure that features like the narrow bench changes and the portraits are not something that that are a change that you can't just turn off in a setting. We wouldn't make major changes like that unless there was a really, really good reason to not allow players to then use the old way if that was what they preferred. So I hope that answers the question. I don't know, Justin, if you had anything to add to that.
No, I think that was a good answer. I've been going through here flagging all the other questions. So
Okay.
I think we got a bunch to go through. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's do the next question here, which is actually
Yeah.
also from
I
Billy
can-
G. You want to read it or you want to answer?
I can read this one for you.
Go for it.
We can both answer this one. But yeah,
Yeah.
question. Some people who use Congregate now are talking about Congregate completely shutting down again. Is there a plan in place if this happens?
So Congregate's, for people who aren't on Congregate or don't know what Congregate is, it's one of the platforms where Idle Champions is available. It used to be primarily like a Flash game platform. Obviously, Flash went away last year, essentially, or at the very beginning of this year, and that definitely hasn't helped that site. But yeah, we're available on there with our WebGL version.
Yeah, I guess the question is if there's been an increased chatter around Kong completely shutting down. I wonder if is there something that's kind of triggered that discussion, or is this just sort of? I personally hadn't heard anything further about Congregate shutting down. I know they're kind of in maintenance mode at this point. They're continuing to run the site, but not a lot of new stuff is getting put up there.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the team has some insight into that. But I mean, I guess the question in general is if something does happen to Congregate, we would absolutely work with the players who are on there and get you transferred to another place, another site.
Yeah, certainly.
Absolutely.
If you play it on Congregate, the WebGL version exists on the Codename Entertainment website as well as it exists on Armor Games. And I think in the case that if Congregate did decide they were going to shut down, our first option would be to allow players to transfer to the WebGL version that runs on Codename on the CNE Games website.
Yeah, and that's what we've done in the past for some of our other games. For example, Bushwhacker 2 and Crusaders were both available on Congregate, and then obviously those were Flash games. And when Congregate stopped supporting Flash games and browsers stopped supporting Flash games, we moved everyone who wanted to over to CNE Games, where we had a downloadable version of each of those games. Yep. So yeah,
definitely. Yeah, we wouldn't leave you high and dry on that one for sure.
No, not at all.
No. Yeah. Okay. What questions should we have next here?
Let's go down the list.
Go down the
list.
I'm just yeah. But Billy G's getting all the questions today.
Well, they got them all in early.
All right. Well, the next question here then is, there have been a few changes in staff and staff positions. Is there a spot where we can see who is doing what?
So yeah, in general, we don't really talk about kind of the minutia of like staff readjustments and whatnot internally. But we do have, I guess, the one that would be most apparent to most people is we have a new person helping out with support. We've got a bunch of new players lately, so we've brought in someone to help out with support. And Sean, who used to be doing a bunch of support, is going to be doing some more streaming in the future, which is really exciting. We've also brought on a couple of new mods as well. But in general, we don't really talk specifically about that kind of stuff. At some point, we got to get our corporate website updated with everyone, but it's generally not something we talk about.
Yeah, certainly not sort of the everyone's specific duties and positions are not something we publicly face beyond sort of the basic position that they're covering or holding. They have. It's a good word. I'm missing a good word for that.
I don't know.
But yeah, also given that we're still a fairly small team and people end up wearing multiple hats. So, you know.
Yep.
Okay. Next question here from Bardic Gifts. Bardic Gifts would like to know, are there any plans to get Critical Role characters? Huh, Justin? Huh? Are there? Are there?
Yeah, I mean, we would, if Critical Role came and wanted to work with us, we would love to work with them. We've got lots of exciting plans for champions in the future, but no plans at the moment for Critical Role folks. Here's the next.
Before you followed on, I saw a chat question here about should I stop starting my tickets with "Hi, Sean."
Actually, I think I saw in our internal chat today that Taylor, our new ticket guy, got his very first ticket addressed directly to him today, and he was very proud of that. So, sure, yeah, start all your tickets with "Hi, Taylor," or "Hi, Taylor," or Sean, or "Hey, you."
Sean's not off them quite yet.
Too.
He's still going to be there for a while. So yeah.
Yeah.
And in fact, I don't think was the plan to permanently or like overall. I think he's still streaming and support, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So he's not going away in that regard. Just he's got someone to share the load with.
Yes, quite a big load. Let's see. Here's a question from K. Ross, who asks, "When you do Russian?"
Soon.
It's true. Very soon.
Yeah.
We're getting much closer. We've talked a little bit. We've kind of danced around the fact that localization's coming. Untitled Champions in a bunch of different languages. I'm fairly sure Russian is one of them, and that is en route.
I know Russian's one of them because it came up in our QA discussion earlier. There's some particular, I don't say issue, but phraseology, the way things are phrased, we need to adjust them to make them work for the Russian. That's
definitely one of the hardest parts of localization. Is just the different grammars of different languages and how things are said. And
At any rate, that is coming soon, although we do not have any specified release date on that yet.
No, we don't.
Okay. Next question is from Dan SJB4. 4B. Can you legendary an ultimate cooldown item? And if you do, will you get the item levels back?
So one difference from Crusaders to Idle Champions for players who, I assume this is a question from someone who's played Crusaders and played with the Legendary system there. The Legendary system in Crusaders doubles the base bonus of the item when you upgrade it to Legendary. In our case, in Idle Champions, we're not doing that. Because of some situations like this, it's not just ultimate cooldown items. There's some other items that are capped. There's some other items we just don't want that bonus to double because it's just already really powerful when you level it up with blacksmithing contracts. So you can legendary an ultimate cooldown item. The base bonus won't be increased, but you will get a secondary bonus that then can be increased by leveling up the legendary item.
Plus, it'll have that really cool legendary border, which so it matches all the other items.
It'll have the cool border. It'll look awesome. You'll be really excited. Yes. Here's a question for you, Dave. It's from Kunk. And they ask, I've noticed that my background Modron party was running for 4 hours, but only progressed 30 levels. Is there a fix for this coming soon?
Yes. Hopefully. I know we are certainly spending time on that right now. The one question around that certainly is the way that particular party was set up. In fact, if you have a Modron party that runs for 4 hours and only progresses 30 levels, and you're consistently seeing that, please open a ticket. Do so with that party set up so that we can get a copy of that account, and you can say in the ticket, you can say, hi Taylor, Sean, or whatever, make sure David gets this save so that we can look at that specifically, because any case where we can see these, where we actually have a repeatability of, hey, I ran it for 4 hours and I only got 30 levels, then we can look at that formation, look at that setup, and see why you're only getting 30 levels on that. Because it definitely seems like 4 hours, you should be getting a lot more than 30 levels in that, unless there's something that is actually set up wrong in that case. And that's sort of why that's why we have to see the formation, see what's going on there, because it should minimize down to about 1. Right now, the slowest should be 1 every 60 seconds, up until you hit the point where you can't progress any further. But so that's happening. Save that account, open the ticket, or rather, open the ticket, which will save an account that I can see, and let them know that they should pass that on to me.
Yeah, you'd even start the ticket with, hi, David.
Except I won't be opening the ticket. But, yeah.
You never know. Sean and Taylor could both go on vacation at the same time, and then it's on you. Well, it's not on you. I guess it'd be on Peter. But yes.
Anyway, next question is from Garwar. Garwar asks, why doesn't Bruner grant credit for his own Dwarven glory? Other champions trigger their own buffs. Why not him?
There are some cases where we use that kind of other keyword on things, and I guess Dwarven Glory is one of those times. There's not really a super big reason for it. Oftentimes it's just where I just don't want, it's just a 100% bonus or something that I just don't want to count in there. So there's no particular reason for it. It's possible something that when we go and do like a balance pass or something, we could change that, tweak that, just to give a little bit of a buff to Bruenor. But yeah, at this point, it's not super. There's not like a big important like lore reason for it. It's just the way it was set up. And here's a question from Emote. It's kind of like emote, but emote. And they ask, are there any plans for colorblind modes or a general accessibility pass?
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly a good question. I know we've talked about this a little bit on previous streams, specifically around having icons on things where color, like for the cards, for example, where the colors might be a little bit difficult to tell apart. I don't know that we have a general accessibility pass planned, but certainly if players reach out who have a specific request around something, like, this is difficult for me because of X, Y, or Z, that we'll always consider it. And so I think that's the best way to get something like that adjusted, is that if you're having an issue with it, especially if you're having an issue with it personally, then reaching out and saying, hey, this is a little bit troublesome for me, and we can address it. But as far as just like a broad going across everything and trying to adjust things, we don't have any plans for that at this time. Okay, next question here is from, how am I supposed to say that aloud? Okay, yep, nope. Okay, well, the next question is there a plan for Modron pipe overflow? Update on this.
Yeah, I think we talked about Modron pipe overflow in the past. It's sort of once you get over the 4 you need to activate the highest level buff, there's not really a point in having more Modron flow. And we do have a plan in place for that, so that you can get or have more flow and have a reason to get more flow. But it's still just a little bit of a ways away. But it's definitely something that we want to do at some point as part of that system. Here's a question from Safe2, who says, do you think CNE Games needs to review its procedures for generating game codes, bearing in mind that a slur was generated as part of a key for Mars' recent stream? Yeah, I wanted to bring this up because it's actually, obviously it's never our intention to have that kind of stuff in there. No. In this case, it wasn't a slur that I don't think anyone really in the office was aware of until it came up on the day. And so that's something that if there's things that pop up like that aren't already in our blacklist, then we will absolutely remove those from our generation as soon as we see them. And there's not that much more I don't think that we can really do about that. It's just tough.
No, especially when it's like I only briefly saw what was going on with that, so I didn't have all the details, but it sounds like it was something from another language. Was that the...
I can't remember if it was something from another language or just like a British slang. The British slangs are the ones that get us all the time.
Yeah. So certainly we would never do that intentionally, and the moment it comes up, it's something that we would remove. But
yes,
Jay Harris, I see. You're saying it's British or Australian slang. Yep. Yeah, not something that not something we knew what it was. So but we certainly remove them the moment we find out that that's the case.
Absolutely. It is, yeah. Never our intention to have that sort of stuff in there, but you'd be surprised how many four-letter combinations of words end up being inappropriate in one
language or another. Yeah, it's one of those things. The broader you go out, the more things you can't do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Next question here is from Emmett. And Emmett would like to know, is there any progress on getting Prudence and Corazon to work together with honorary crewmates and Resolve?
Yeah, I think somebody asked about this last week, where honorary crewmates makes everyone who is adjacent or non-adjacent with a spec neutral, and then Resolve is supposed to increase Prudence's stacks, max stacks of Glee. And those are supposed to work together, and I passed that on to the dev team last week. And so assumedly it is either on their plate or was immediately forgotten as soon as I passed it on. So we will highlight that one and make sure it gets onto the permanent list of things from this stream that we want to fix.
Okay. The next question after that, we've got here from Surson. Surson would like to know, have you guys ever considered making a super difficult variant for events? Seems like people mostly just overpower everything.
Yeah, this is a cool question. The challenge here is really just there's such a wide variety of what is defined as super difficult that really, like, no matter, depending on what we do, if we do something that is actually like super difficult for like 99% of people, well, only 1% of people would be able to do it. and the range of sort of damage required and gear required and stuff like that just makes it really, really hard to even balance for that type of thing. So it would be a cool thing to do, to have like a really challenging variant. I'm not sure how we would actually accomplish that and have it like be very challenging for most people, but not impossible, but also not trivial for people who are really overpowered. And it's just tough to find that point. So we kind of look at events more as they're mainly for sort of new and mid-tier players, and we the high-end players will pick up a new champion through them, but you're not necessarily going to find a super challenging set of content in there. Every once in a while, we let a variant slip in that is really, really challenging for all players, because you like can't click, and like only one champion can do damage, and it's really just like luck of the draw whether or not you get through the first few levels. But even those ones, once you get through the first few levels, they're generally pretty trivial after that if you've got a decent amount of favor. So yeah, that's a tough one. We got another question here from Moloch7. Who says, are there any plans to code a shopping cart for the in-game store for those of us playing on Epic like they have on Steam, so I don't have to make 3 separate transactions with 3 transaction fees to buy 3 packs of familiars?
Yeah, that's an interesting that's an interesting question from the standpoint of transaction fees, because I hadn't actually thought about that until the question there. But I don't know that. So the Steam shopping cart, does that actually, no, sorry, I'm thinking aloud here. That doesn't let you from in-game options, you can't do that. But for the DLC externally to Steam, you can of course do that. And that's of course built into Steam, whereas in-game, the individual transactions occur for each item the same way they do on Epic.
Yeah, I'm not even sure if we can actually like instantiate an Epic purchase with multiple items in it from our end. Like I don't know if that's something we can do.
Something that it may not be something that Epic supports.
Yeah, that Epic supports. Yeah, because we base like the API is basically, we say to Epic, this player wants to buy this item, and Epic's like, all right, we'll pop up the thing and do the process and then award that item. But I don't know if we actually have the ability. This player would like to buy these 3 items.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this is something that we can actually do.
Yeah. It's a good question, though, and it is. I think it's a valid concern if there are transaction fees on all of them. And sort of an individual set, it's like, oh, that's unfortunate. I think it's something that likely Epic will improve going forward, or even having an in-Epic store thing, or on their own platform, the way Steam does. I do think that's something that seems like something that they'll add over time. But Epic is still, quite small compared to Steam in terms of titles and features in their platform. So they're still working on that. Even though Epic's sort of the biggest games on Epic are free to play games like Fortnite and Rocket League and whatnot, I think it's I don't think they're super set up for a lot of like really lots of items free to play games kind of thing, right? They're really set up for one-offs. So yeah, that's a challenge. As far as I know, their system is still on a manual process where we contact them and let them know what items we'd like them to change in prices and that sort of thing, rather than a system that's automated. So we'll see in the future, but I don't think we can actually do that right now. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Next question is from Kinra Vip. And Kinra Vip would like to know, may we have a button to access Modron Core directly from an adventure screen?
I had a follow-up question to this for Kenra or Keen. I feel like they spelled out their name at some point. Anyway,
they did.
Which Modron core do you want to access? Because I guess when you go to the multi-party screen, you get to pick which of sort of your 3 cores you want to look at, and so having a hotkey doesn't necessarily. Like, I guess you'd have to have 3 hotkeys to bring you like Modron Core for Party 1, Modron Core for Party 2, Modron Core for Party 3. It seems like this is not as straightforward as a button
that would be able to access. I mean, maybe you're
I mean,
thinking
you
the
could always
Modron
do
core
the current
for the
one.
current adventure.
The current one could be an easy go-to, right?
I suppose, yeah.
And then I guess I suppose that is access to the core, because obviously there are maybe not necessarily obviously, but the little Modron icon you can click to bring up the automation settings. So if it's the automation settings you were looking for, those you can bring up from the icon on the buff display.
Right.
But to actually go in and modify the core, no, there's no quick way to bring that up. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
One thing that had been noted on that, I think someone mentioned it somewhere else too, was the idea that potentially having the ability on the core page to switch between them. So like you could push a button to bring up the core, and then have like a tab over to the next party core, and I'll tab between the active cores would make that just a little bit less, a little fewer clicks to go between them. So
yeah, it's an interesting kind of idea. Yeah.
Okay. Next question. This one is from the Real Bunny Beast. And they would like to know, when designing mechanics for champions based on an existing character, example, something from books or from streamers, do you start completely from scratch, or do you have a mechanic in mind you're just waiting for the right champion to apply it to?
Yeah, I highlighted this question because it's a good opportunity to kind of talk about how we design champions, which we haven't done in a couple of weeks. So I thought maybe I would. So when we design a champion, especially one that's based off of like a book or a streamer, we will generally talk with the author of that character, whether it's the author of the book or the player who plays it on stream. And we start off by just getting a whole bunch of sort of feedback from them about who the character is, what they do, like some cool things that they've done either in the books or on stream, and we generally work from there when doing our mechanics for the new champion. So the ones where we've got a mechanic in mind and we're just waiting for the right champion, those are generally kind of the CNE original characters. And we have a couple of those. We have one coming out, hopefully before the end of the year. I think that has a mechanic in that we had in mind that we were just waiting for the right champion to apply it to, and I think it works really well for that champion. So keep your eyes peeled for that one. But yeah, in general, we work from what the owner of that character says about the champion in order to figure out what kind of mechanics they'll have. We do generally have a role in mind, though that is also sometimes informed by what the author is saying about their character. So yeah, I think that kind of answers that question.
I think so. Move on to the next question then.
Yeah.
This one is from Terrata. I'm going with Terrata. Terrata would like to know, when I press the complete adventure button, I see the progress of favor and gold gain. Then when you play a patron variant, the patron currency is static. Have you thought about implementing some progress there?
Yeah, so the patron currency that you earn in a patron variant is based off of the required level of the patron variant. And the reason we do that is to make patron variants kind of something that you get to the end and then you finish. We don't necessarily, I think, want people farming a whole bunch in patron variants to try and get a little bit more currency. So that's kind of the reason we set that currency as a static amount. It just feels kind of weird to, like, if you have a patron variant where it's like, get to area 400 with these restrictions, and then you get to area 400, you reset. Or you could like play another 500 areas and get a bunch of patron currency, but then not everyone would necessarily be able to go 500 areas. Some players might just barely hit 400, and so once they've reset, they've lost out on that potential additional patron currency. So there's just some balance issues there. There's some we just decided to keep it static because I think it just made it a little bit more fair across the board and a little bit less like made it feel like you had, when you finished a patron variant, you were done that patron variant and you didn't necessarily have to spend a bunch more time in it. So that's why we did that. Here's a question from Severand0166 who asks, is it possible to get debuff information on enemies when we mouse over them?
this would be useful for things like Azaka farming.
Yeah, so this is more of a discussion around how quickly you can actually get information like that while the game is active, especially if you've got any kind of speed buffs going on. I mean, the debuff icons, of course, do get stacked onto the champion or onto the enemies. But I can see, if you don't know exactly what each one of the icons is, and if they're moving quickly, you might not know where it came from. I think that the trickiest part about this is actually getting a mouse over on a monster before it gets killed.
Yeah, I think when we've talked about this before, we've talked about potentially having like a pause feature where you can pause and then potentially look at the debuffs on enemies, but only maybe when it's paused. Otherwise, like you say, like if you have a speed potion going, you just got your mouse like in the middle of the field. I could see like, little tooltips just like popping up and going away and popping up and going away and popping up and going away and being really, really kind of annoying.
It wouldn't be super useful, unfortunately, unless you could just stop it and look at it. And then, I mean, and then in the case where you've got them on, maybe you could see them if you're at your wall, but it would only be it'd be very difficult unless it was something that was hitting everybody, to actually successfully mouse over the one right in front, given there often are quite a pile up in that particular circumstance.
Yeah, but I mean, I think people are, I guess the challenge here is I think that they're specifically asking, I mean, they're saying this would be useful for things like Azaka farming. And in Azaka farming, you only have one enemy up and you're specifically trying not to kill them, which is, a niche case in the game. That's not necessarily something that you really run into a lot. You only run into it if you specifically kind of build your formation and build your strategy around it. So, maybe at some point in the future, maybe in combination with some other quality of life stuff, but it's probably not something that we're just going to toss in without a lot of thought. Here's another question from Kunk again, who says, could you guys implement a way for the players to move items around in their inventory so they could organize their inventory to their liking?
Yeah, I mean, that's a reasonable question. I mean, it's certainly, I could see people wanting to organize the items they use frequently, to the top, and then, well, I guess the rest of the items, forget them. You don't use them at the bottom. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly something that could be done. It's something that we could certainly consider prioritizing if a lot of players were asking for this feature. And certainly, it'd be nice to have at least some sorting on that. I know right now we don't really offer any way to sort or filter on the inventory. And of course, having just given sort and filter on the familiars, I'm sure that is a feature that players are going to get used to having in a lot of different places. I know we've got plans for those in some other places too that I probably shouldn't mention at this point. But yeah, I mean, what do you think, Justin?
I'm distracted trying to find the answer to the next question. Sorry. I'm reading through our things, trying to see if we actually talked about this.
So I guess on the inventory, I would say if that becomes a popular request, it's certainly something that we can consider. Next question, the one you're looking for an answer to, is from Ensign Garrick, and Ensign Garrick would like to know, Tiamat nears. How near is Tiamat?
So I'm trying to look through here, trying to see if we have talked about yes, here we go.
I mean, how about
this?
Justin?
Today in the community TNA or Q&A.
Excuse me.
The trials and answers. Yes. So I think we've been teasing. We have said, perhaps publicly, I assume, since it's in this thing, that the Trials of Mount Tiamat is coming next week.
Oh. See, I was going to ask you, if Tiamat can fly at 80 miles an hour, how many days away is Tiamat?
Or maybe we're just releasing more information about it next week? I don't know. It's coming pretty soon.
How many miles away is Tiamat? That didn't work. It's coming soon.
It's coming soon. Tiamat is some number of miles away. They're flying towards us. If Tiamat is moving at 80 miles per hour and we are 600 miles away, how soon will Tiamat arrive and burn down our office?
Now,
There you go, folks. There's your challenge.
A European Tiamat or an African Tiamat?
Tiamat is carrying
a coconut?
She's carrying 5 coconuts of various. One of them is 12 pounds. One of them is 3 pounds. One of them's half a pound. Yes. So yeah, it's coming soon. Now we're just getting. It's not even Friday, and we're just getting silly. Let's see here. Here's another question. Let's just answer another question from Ben Halden. Sorry. They say offline progress. I like this game, and I like idle games because I can set and forget. I feel like I always have to have the game running to make progress. Is there an ETA on offline progress being fixed?
Yeah, so we don't have a specific ETA, but what we are doing now that mainly all of the Tiamat stuff has been buttoned up and is getting ready to go, we'll have some development time for that, as well as I know myself and Justin are dedicating some additional of our time towards getting the some of these long-standing issues updated, fixed, and taken care of. We should be getting well, we have the next about 2 months dedicated to fixing issues around Modron bugs, offline progress, multi-party related stuff. And so the answer is very soon. We should have some improvements in on that, but we don't have a specific ETA because one of the reasons why these things have been so long-standing is because they have been issues that have been really difficult to track down. So they are getting some dedicated time on them. But like I say, the ETA, hopefully it'll be inside that period. If we don't solve them, we're gonna have a lot of egg on our face. But the plan is to get those done as soon as possible. And so yeah. But I don't have a specific ETA. But stand by. Stay tuned. Okay. Next question here is from Tabletop Santa. And Tabletop Santa would like to know, would there ever be an opportunity to do a charity event where participants in the event could be entered in to have a character created for the game?
I think that'd be pretty cool. I'm not sure how that would work exactly. I'm sure there'd be some legal issues around that, but probably nothing we couldn't sort out. I mean, I think that's a pretty cool idea.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds kind of like, because we work with a lot of creators to get their characters into the game, you know, which is different than sort of crowdsourcing something from the community and taking ideas in like that. This would be, if we were to do something like that, this would be getting an opportunity to work with us the way that those creators work with us. But so it's a cool idea. I'm not entirely sure sort of where we could slot something like that in, but
Extra Life's coming up in a few months.
Don't remind me. So much stuff to do.
Another question here from Razar2, who asks, is there a news RSS feed and or an API which can be used to access different aspects of the game, i.e. News, stream schedule, events, etc.? If there is not such a thing, would you be open to some would you open some interfaces so the community can build a REST API?
Yeah, so there's kind of 2 parts to this question, and the first part is having an API that the community could access to pull in certain information about the game, and even just not related, or even more general than just sort of the news posts, schemes, schedules, that sort of thing. I know we've talked about this. At least I know Jarrett was very excited about having an opportunity to do something like this for character data and for I guess sort of gameplay information specifically, because I know sort of some community members have accessed things in ways that aren't necessarily the most secure for that we like to see, and so there's certainly an appetite for that. So as far as the API kind of stuff goes, it's certainly something that we could do, especially if there was enough sort of desire for that. The trickier part about some of the items that you're asking for, though, is that some of those items actually aren't available in a form that's even somewhere that an API could get at, for example. A lot of the news stuff isn't there until very shortly before it's going out. The stream schedule, I think I don't actually think we have the stream schedule anywhere other than as a internal documentation, and then what we put out specifically onto Twitch. And then as far as the event stuff, yeah, I mean, sort of things that are live, you might be able to get data for, but certainly a lot of the upcoming stuff, there isn't anything scheduled and in a place that that even the API could get at. So someone would have to curate that, and I think that would be the curating of that data would, I think, be the trickier part for some of it.
Yeah, definitely some of that stuff's hand curated. Like I know we post the stream schedule, I think, to Reddit and to Discord like on Monday every week, but we don't have like a publicly accessible document where we could have an API pull from for that kind of thing.
Yeah. But as far as like the things like the news, and I think that even the changelog stuff, I believe some people had been pulling that stuff even just from the get definitions. Yeah. Okay, moving on. Next question here is from Davig. Davig would like to know, what are your thoughts on expanding the info on certain specialization descriptions? For example, which champions Nova's Discovery is currently targeting? So you don't have to go back into the effect list to see it. Or for Ashara, how many champions each bond specialization choice would currently include if chosen?
Yeah, this is a great question because it actually applies to a champion that's coming up, has some specialization choices that it's very important that you see how many champions each one would affect. And so that is something that we are looking to add for that champion. And if we do manage to get it added, then we will certainly go back and add that to some of the other ones. For example, Ashara's Bonds are really good opportunity for that. And there's a couple other champions as well that would benefit from that sort of thing. The Nova's Discovery thing is a little bit different. That one would be a change in the effect on the actual active buffs tab. So that's probably a little bit of a different beast, but certainly the second part of this for showing how many champions a specialization would use, or how powerful a specialization would be based on your current formation is something that we're looking to do for this upcoming champion. This aforementioned champion.
Okay. Let's see. Next question here is from Zap Fourth, or maybe Zap the Fourth. Do you ever just make champions for the sake of making them, knowing that they probably won't go into the game?
No. No, we don't. We don't have time for that. The rate at which we are adding champions, there's one new champion every 3 weeks. There's also evergreen champions, like the Nerds champion that just came out last week. There's another evergreen champion that we're working on for hopefully before the end of the year. And so there's we just don't have time. There was one point where I had a document with like, these are some cool champion ideas that maybe we'll do in the future, and then I never added any more ideas to that because it was just as fast as I could come up with the ideas, we were able to find ways to fit them in. So no, we don't do that. Do you ever do that, Dave?
Can't say that I have. Okay, let's see here. Next
Varanican.
question is from Varanican. Varanican would like to know, will Legendary Rarity Upgrades be from Platinum and Gold chests, or from chest purchases with real money? So
no.
Is,
Legendary Rarity Upgrades will not come from gold chests or from purchases with real money. To upgrade an item to legendary, you'll have to have the epic version. So I guess technically the epic version comes from from chests that you could buy with real money. But to change an item from epic to legendary, you will need currency from the new Trials of Mount Tiamat feature, which will be coming out either soon or very soon, depending on
how fast Tiamat flies.
How fast Tiamat gets here.
Okay.
Let's see. Here's a question that I think you can answer, Dave, from
a shot.
From Hayden Hayward, who asks, can you enable the ability to play the iOS version of the game on Macs with the M1 chip? From what I understand, the new Macs can play native iPad/iPhone apps, but the developers need to allow them.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting development there. I didn't actually. I didn't realize there was something we had to change for that. In fact, now that I think about it, when they came out with the M1 stuff, I know they were saying that they would do that, and we hadn't actually put anything, hadn't considered that at all. So I don't see why not. I don't see a big reason why we would disallow that. So
I'm trying to remember if I've seen like an email from Apple, because we get, you know, the developer emails from them, and I'm trying to remember if I've seen one that says like, hey, go like flag your apps for M1 chip usage or whatever. And I feel like if we did see one, it was like we are allowing certain apps to be flagged in this way on a case-by-case basis or something like that. So we'll have to go and check and see if that's something they've kind of released more widely.
Yeah. But like I said, I don't see any reason why we wouldn't allow that if that was the case.
No, I mean the version of the game that runs on iPad, iPhone is essentially the same version of the game that runs on Steam.
Yeah, that's true.
Here's another question, or here is a question from Digalotta, who says, would you be looking at the hitbox sizes for small buttons on phone apps, like swapping champions, maybe inside or maybe by putting it inside the champion menu or adding a zoom function? This is kind of related to the last one.
Yeah. So one interesting sort of takeaway from this, or not takeaway, sort of tidbit of information around this, is the hitbox sizes actually do have a minimum on all buttons, specifically for small buttons on phone apps or for the phone version, because hitting some of those tiny X's is quite difficult if they don't have a minimum size around them. In fact, that very thing caused a bunch of difficulty with being able to move the sliders around on the settings menu on phone on the phone version, because they were overlapping in a very non-functional way. Let's just put it like that. But I think maybe if there are specific ones at a specific resolution that you're having difficulty with, sending in a screenshot of it, and then pointing at which ones are difficult to hit, that we can take a look at maybe adjusting those individual ones, because we do have the ability to adjust the minimum sizes on each button on an individual basis. So look at specific ones and see which ones are going on there. The zoom functionality would be a lot trickier to implement. So it's not likely something we're going to add in that regard. But there is also the possibility, and one thing we've run into more recently is that some of the phones have been coming out with higher and higher and higher resolutions, which is been having the game actually show up smaller than we intended. Because we had some scaling factors in there just for the whole game in general, which maybe that's what you're thinking of when you think of zoom functionality. But what we did try to do is scale the game so that it was as large as possible, given the screen size, without not providing the game enough resolution to fit everything. Hopefully that makes sense. Anyway, what we did find more recently, there's been some iPad and phone releases that have had resolutions that have been so large that they were missed by our little heuristic scaling, and then the game shows up just tiny, which is, in fact, I think we had a fairly funny post, well, funny for us, I guess, not funny for them, where someone on a new 4K, I think 4K screen Android had posted the message, where we have a message on the phone version that says, hey, this isn't really designed for smaller screens. And it was so tiny they couldn't read it until they enabled the magnifier on their phone to see that's what the message was saying. And this, of course, is because the resolution on those phones has just gotten so out of hand, I would say.
Yeah.
4K on your 6-inch phone, maybe.
It's more resolution than you can actually see. It's like higher resolution than real life.
That's right.
I don't know if it's necessary.
It's HD TV. It's higher resolution than the real world.
It's like, just give me a 640 by 480 phone with a battery that'll last for a week. Like, you could do that.
Okay, I think you got your old man voice out. But,
and get off my lawn.
Okay. But for sure, share that information with the ticket, and we can look at adjusting some of those hitboxes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, next question here is from the real Rainer. It's the real Jim Rainer, maybe, I don't know. And he'd like to know, are there any plans to add voice work to the game?
It probably is. It's the voice actor who did the voice of Rainer. Hi. He's like, got some work for me.
No, there are no plans to add voice work to the game. And the main reason for that is we're localizing the game right now, so we are very well aware of how much text there is in the game. And I think the cost to add voice work for some 200,000 or 300,000 line or words of text would probably be prohibitive.
Yeah, probably just a little bit.
Just a little.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe we just do it in-house. I could do all the voices. Everyone would just be an old man.
Oh.
Jarlaxle would be like, "Hey there, Celeste."
Just another reason to turn off the audio.
I'll do my one-man reenactment of all of the cinematics in Idle Champions. Oh, there we go.
Okay, nope.
So you guys better continue to ask questions or else.
Okay.
Speaking of other questions, here is a question from Anime Girl 377, who asks, are there any plans to make it platform transferable? So like if I wanted to move my progress from Epic to Steam or from PC to mobile, would that be possible?
Yeah, so this is a question we do get fairly frequently, and the answer on this one is generally no. The platforms don't like us to allow a cross transfer, or my words. Generally don't like to allow cross-platform gameplay, and so it's not something that we allow at this time, mainly because of that reason. But we do allow special cases if something happens, like you change platforms, you're not playing on PC anymore, you're playing on phone, that sort of thing. We can make exceptions, but generally speaking, that's not something that we support.
Mm-hmm. Matt Ender is saying in stream that we need a stream where people do readings of the adventure texts, but I'm pretty sure we did that at one point, and we had like
we had Chris Redrum, and we had
I can't remember his
Matt something, the voice of Shepard,
Commander Shepard,
and
Mark Meir.
Shamefully, I never watched it, so I am.
Yes, so Mark Meir and Christina Ariel.
There we go. Thank God.
Yes, they were great. I hear it was an amazing stream. But yes, so I think there's probably some archives of that if you go back and check them out.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Next question. Actually, we've probably got time for about one more question here, Justin, and then we need to close out. The next question here, though, actually says there's no name. What? Why is there no name?
Oh, it's just question.
It's just question. Okay. Well, question here from Nameless. Oh wow. Will Mount Tiamat be mid/endgame difficulty to complete?
Yeah, so I touched on this earlier in the stream. In order to take part in the Trials of Mount Tiamat, you will need to have completed all of the base adventures in the Descent into Avernus campaign. So if you haven't done that, I would definitely get on that. Tiamat is on their way. She's flying. She's like 580 miles away now. So definitely get that done. So whatever kind of level that's at, I think I would say that's kind of mid-game. Towards endgame probably to get there, but I think you can probably get there in a month or so of play if you focus on it. So yeah, that's kind of where it's at. And once you've got that done and you've got that unlocked, there's not the actual Trials Mount Tiamat thing. You can kind of partake in that at kind of any level.
Okay, well, there are lots more questions here, but we've clearly not been focused enough to get through them. So we will get to those.
Yes, indeed. Where is our script? There it is here. Yes. So if we didn't get to your question this week, don't worry. You'll have another opportunity. We will be live again at this same time next week. Before we sign off again, we would like to thank our tireless mods. Today it was Jay and Mars. Thanks, guys.
And of course, to all of you for hanging out, watching the stream, asking such good questions, and enjoying the game. Without you, no one here would get to do what we do.
And we like what we do.
All right, that's it. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.
Bye. Did you make it so we're muted on this screen too?
No, I didn't.
Oh, no.
Well, if someone in the comments said there that we should do all the voices of Sean Connery.
I know, there was an awful lot of support for me doing all the voices. I'm not sure what to think of that. They say they don't hear us. Perfect.